Okay, good evening, everybody. We're carrying on with our path of the just, finding our path towards Hashem. We're in the chapter 19 of chassidus, and up till now we've been talking about what the actions constitute chassidus, translated in English as to piety, that higher level of connection with Hashem, which means going on beyond the letter of the law. We talked about what those actions are. We talked about how those actions are supposed to be done. And now we're going to be talking about the intention, the kavanot. Hine, be'arnu ad hina, chassidus shma tolui b'maaseh u'ba'ofen asiyah. Up to now we've been speaking about what consists of chassidus and how we do those actions. Neva'er ato atluya b'kavana. We're now going to explain what the part of chassidus which deals with the kavanah. Why should a person want to do something which is an act of chassidus? What is the motivation? What am I supposed to be mechavein? Uchava dibarnu gam kein lamala me'inyan lishma u'shelo lishma l'madrigo sehem. We also spoke before in the beginning of the book about the different levels of lishma. Lishma means for its own sake. In other words, there are different levels why a person does something. Some could be purely selfish reasons, some could be less selfish reasons, some could be purely altruistic reasons. So we already spoke about those ideas on the lower level of what's called tzidkus. We spoke about what motivates a person. The general run-of-the-mill person is the idea that he doesn't want to get punished. That's what makes him a zoe. He's going to be careful not to do an aveira, to do a sin. What motivates somebody on a higher level is the fact that he might be missing out, that there's going to be other people who are going to be better than him. Now we're going to be talking about that on a much sort of higher level, so to speak. What motivates a person? What are the motivations? We're talking about the levels of altruism. Omnam vaday shemisha miskaven ba'avodaso l'taya nafsho lifnei boiro. Leman tizker l'sheves es ponov bichlal Yesharim v'chasidim lachazos b'noam Hashem u'levake b'hecholo levake gemul asher b'olam haba lo nuchol lo'ma shitiyeh kavana zu roeh achein lo nuchol lo'ma gam kein shitiyeh hayoseh tova. Let me translate. So for sure, somebody who wants to be on this higher level because he understands that is going to, let's translate it literally. Somebody who does the avodah of Hashem on this higher level of chassidus because he wants to purify his soul in front of Hashem, in order that he'll merit to sit in a place in Shemayim amongst those who are considered to be the Yesharim, the straight, and the chassidim, the pious. Lachazos b'noam Hashem, to look as it's on the pleasantness of Hashem. Of course, that's a kind of Kabbalistic idea, to bask in the radiance of Hashem, ulevaka behecholoi, and to, so to speak, visit Hashem's courtyard, uvakabel hagemul asher b'olam hazeh, and to receive this reward in olam haber. You can't say that that's a bad kavanah. However, it's not the most altruistic kavanah, because it still includes a degree, maybe even a large degree, of self-interest. That's certainly not considered to be the most altruistic of reasons. Because to the extent that a person is intending for his own good, so really in itself, he is serving for his own sake. Now, there's a bit of a stira here, there's a bit of a contradiction, as he points out in the notes, because if you remember right back at the beginning of Mesilas Yesharim, we said that ha'adam lo nivra ela lisaneg al Hashem elanos misiv shchonoso. The man was only created for this purpose, in order to have pleasure al Hashem, on Hashem, and to bask from the ziv shchinoso, the radiance of the divine presence. So what is the on the one hand, we learned at the beginning of the book that that's the purpose, that Hashem's whole purpose in creating the world was to create a situation and a creature called mankind, man, who would be the recipient of this goodness. So that was the whole point. And as he said in the beginning of the book, there really is no other real pleasure in the world except to be close to Hashem. So on the one hand, it's telling me at the beginning that that's really the whole point of the creation. On the other hand, when I was saying that no, that's not the perfect way to serve Hashem. So there are a couple of answers here. The first answer, that Hashem created the world, so to speak, in order that he could express, if one can talk in these terms, himself in as much as that his intrinsic nature is to do good. A man was created to be the recipient of that goodness. In other words, that's from Hashem's point of view. From Hashem's point of view, it's true. The whole creation of the world was to do good and for man to receive this good. But that's only from Hashem's point of view. But a chassid, a pious person, but that's not what a chassid should intend. Ella olav lechavein ach v'rak leman harbos kavod shemayim ba'olam. That his entire intention be that there should be a greater kavod, honor of Hashem in the world. Another way to answer it is to say that it's true that Hashem created the world, and with one reason only, was to do good and for us to have pleasure. But what is my intention in receiving that pleasure? Is my receiving that pleasure to have the pleasure? And of course we talk about principally that pleasure of Olam Haba, the world to come, or is my intention in order to be able to fulfill Hashem's desire? In other words, it's true, I'm receiving this pleasure, but by doing that, my intention is that I'm fulfilling what Hashem's intention was in the first place. And that's an altruistic intention. So there are really two altruistic intentions. Otherwise, either we can say no, that's totally from Hashem's point of view, so to speak, the idea of giving, and that my intention should be not to, in any way, my intention should be purely to be mar bechavot shemayim, to increase the honor of Hashem in this world, and I should not think in any way about whatever reward it is that I'm going to have. Or we could say that no, my intention is to receive that reward, but I'm receiving that reward because that's what Hashem wants to do. That's why Hashem created the world, and therefore by receiving that reward, by receiving that closeness to Hashem, and basking b'ziv shchinaso, is fulfilling his ratzon. Okay. Ach, הכוונה האמיתית המצויה והחסידים אשר טרחו והשתדלו להשיגה הוא שיהיה האדם עובד רק למען אשר כבודו של אדון ברוך הוא יגדל וירבה. But the higher, more altruistic purpose is Hashem's entire reason that he works and he tries and he does is to increase the honor, the kavod of Hashem in the world, the perception of God in this world. That's his whole intention. And this, of course, is a natural outcome of when a person is filled with love of Hashem, and he desires, and he longs El Hagdalas Kavodo, to see that Hashem's name is glorified in the world. Mitztaya Al Kolma Shiyamayit Mimenu, and he has pain, he's distressed by any diminution of Hashem's honor in this world. Ki oz yavod avodoso l'tach liseh, because then his avoda, whatever he does to serve Hashem, is for this intention. Shelafnos mitzido, shelafochas mitzido here kavodi yisborach Mr. Gadel. That at least from his, whatever he's doing is going to create a greater kavod of Hashem in the world. V'yisaver shekol sha b'nei Adam yu kamoken, and he should desire and long that everybody else in the world should feel the same way as he does. I was just thinking as I was coming in here tonight that we see a great uprise of anti-Semitism in the world. And of course it's something that pains us greatly. And in recent events in Australia, the most terrible massacres, there's another side to it, which is whenever something like this happens in the world, whenever there's anti-Semitism, when millions of people are turning their backs on the Jewish people, when brutal, horrific acts are committed, this is in a sense a tremendous chil Hashem. The Second World War was a tremendous chil Hashem. And a person who's on the level of chassidus should not just, and of course I'm not in any way diminishing this in any way, the terrible human tragedy, the terrible loss of life, the terrible feeling that a Jew has of the hatred of so many of the world, so many people in the world hate us, detest us, and it becomes clearer and clearer every day. But apart from that, or I wouldn't say apart from that, but alongside that, there's a deeper, there's a more, in a way, that parallel with that anti-Semitism is really a hatred of Hashem, is a diminution of Hashem's honor in this world. And honor is a difficult word because honor sounds like something which is like conceit or whatever. That's not what it means. And we're not talking about that. We're saying that Hashem, when people perceive that there's a God running the world, Elokei Yisrael, the God of the Jews, is Hu Hashem. And the more anti-Semitism there is, the more hatred there is, the more violence, the more bloodshed, this weakens the perception of Hashem in the world, and it's a tremendous chil Hashem. And that's something that a person who is a chassid should, when he looks at world events, should be feeling. The tremendous bizayon, the tremendous desecration of God's name amongst the nations of the world. So we're saying that a personal level of chassidus, his whole idea is to purify himself, not to receive this reward, which is in itself not a bad thing, but because he wants Hashem's kavanot to be revealed in the world. He wants that all of his actions and the purifying of himself will cause an influx of good into the world, which will elevate the name of Hashem in the world amongst the nations, amongst the Jewish people, and amongst everybody in the world. And that everybody should feel the same way, that everybody should be mitzta'er, should be pained by the lack of Hashem's covenant in the world when things happen against the Jewish people. And concomitantly, or correspondingly, that when things happen which glorify the name of the Jewish people. So this should be seen as a cover for of Hashem. And even though he's only one person, he should feel, that's why Adam was created, the Yachidi is going to say this in a moment, that as far as I'm concerned, that is what I want my life to represent, the elevation of Hashem's name in this world. V'yitztorev is anach, he should be pained, he should groan, he should be tremendously afflicted and upset by the fact that it's being, Hashem's covered is being reduced in the world. V'kol shekain, amar shemamayet hu atzmo, and all the more so, he should be more mitzvah for the slip-ups that he makes, which bring to lack of covenant in Hashem. And of course, there's a mystical idea here that to the extent that I do a mitzvah that in some mystical way elevates, enlarges the honor of Hashem in the world, the perception of a God in this world. And Chalila, to the extent that I mess up, that I do an Aveira, and all the different levels, whether that's an Aveira which was accidental or something, Chas v'Chalila, which was deliberate, this all goes to either bring Hashem's name lower, Chas v'Chalila, or to elevate it. And whether that's b'shogeg or b'oines or b'chalushas hateva, whether I make that slip up, whether I don't do my avoda properly, I don't serve Hashem properly, I don't do the mitzvahs properly, whether I'm doing that inadvertently, or something that happened b'oines, which was beyond my control, or through physical weakness, the weakness of a person's nature. Asher kasher eloi l'shomer min hachatoim b'chol eis. It's very difficult for a person to be on guard 24/7, that he doesn't do something which he shouldn't do. Kinyan hakosov, as it says in the pasuk, ki odem ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'leyechato. There's nobody in this whole world who only did good and never sinned. V'devar zeh b'oru b'tana devei Eliyahu zechor latov. Omru kol chacham Yisrael sheyesh boi devar Torah v'amitoi. It says in the Tana Devei Eliyahu, it's a medrash, and he says that any Chacham Yisrael, any Jewish sage, sheyesh bo devar Torah, who has Torah, la'amitoi, he understands the Torah to its truth, not in a superficial way. Umis aneach al kavodo shel Kodesh Baruch Hu, and groans. He is in tremendous discomfort and happiness because of the lack of kavod of Hashem in this world. Val kavodin shel Yisrael, and also on the lack of kavod, and that's what we were speaking about before, of the Jewish people. And he feels this all of his days. And he desires, he longs, meitzer lichvod Yerushalayim, and he's also pained by the fact that Yerushalayim is in spiritual ruins, even though it's built physically. It's not the Yerushalayim Shel Pam. It's not the Yerushalayim of the Beis Hamikdash. Ulichvod Beis Hamikdash, and the fact that the Beis Hamikdash is now in ruins, and on the top of Har Moriah sits a foreign building. V'liyeshua shetitzmach b'korov, and pains himself. He longs that the redemption should come, should sprout immediately, very soon. Ulechinus golius, and that all the exiles should be brought in, the ingathering of the exiles. Zoicha l'ruach hakodesh b'devarov. Such a person will merit to have the Holy Spirit, ruach hakodesh, a degree of prophecy, not prophecy itself, but some kind of divine inspiration in his words. Nimtzeis lo made. It comes out. We can learn. Shazos hi hakavana ha'ma'ula me'ula. That is the ideal kind of kavana. Again, we're talking about intention that a person seeks when he does acts of chassidus, of piety. Shehi rochoka legamri mekol hanas atzmo. That it should be very distant from any thought of his own pleasure. Ve'ena ela lichvodo shel mokom. And the only reason he's doing these things is for the honor of Hashem, ulekidush shmo yisborach, and to sanctify Hashem's name, hamiskodesh bevriosov, b'shah sha'oisim ratzoinu, that Hashem's name is sanctified by his creatures, his creations, when they do his will. And we spoke about this many times before, that a mitzvah is just not something that elevates me, but it's something that elevates the whole world. When I do a mitzvah properly, when I keep Shabbos properly, when I put on tefillin properly, when I daven properly, when I do chesed properly, whatever mitzvah that I do, and I do it with the proper kavanah and with the proper intent, and I do it with tremendous accuracy in terms of fulfilling the halacha as it really should be in the ideal, most ideal of circumstances. This causes an awareness of Hashem, of God in this world, to grow. That people see Hashem in the world more. They see the hand of God. They see the Jewish people more as who we are, Hashem's people. And that should be the desire behind every mitzvah that I do. V'alzeh omru, as it says in the Zohar, Mishpatim, Eizu a chassid. Who is the one who is a chassid? hamischased im koino, the one who is a person who does piety, the one who is pious with his Creator. He does things, acts of piety for Hashem, so to speak. Now, of course, it's not possible to give Hashem anything. That should be axiomatic. There's no. Just 1 second here. Yes. I can't find it here. It's chesed im Hashem. So this idea of doing chesed for Hashem is, as I said, something which must be understood. That we're not talking about, of course we can't give Hashem anything. That has to be said very strongly. It's axiomatic that Hashem is perfect in every way. If it would be that I could give Hashem something, that meant that he didn't have that thing before. Which meant that in some way I just added to Hashem, so to speak. I made him more perfect, chas v'chalila. So axiomatically, that's impossible. Because we start off from the point of departure that Hashem is perfect in every way. But when I do these acts of chassidus, so to speak, I'm mischased with Hashem to the extent that I facilitate Hashem's presence to be more understood, more visible in this world. As we said, Derech Hashem says it, Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, that Hashem, so to speak, is a constant, brilliant light of illumination. And the reason why we don't see Hashem's light some of the time is because we have, so to speak, dirty windows. The lights, the sun is undimmed by the fact that my windows are dirty. It's just I'm not receiving the light. So when a person is mischassid with Hashem, what that means is that he facilitates the fact that Hashem's illumination of the world reaches to this world, that people perceive in this world that there's a God. והנה, החסיד הזה, מלבד העבודה שהוא עובד במעשה מצוות על kavana hazois. So apart from, he's going to say another point now. There's another idea. Another idea for a chassid, for a pious person, the kavanot, the intention behind is doing this act of chassidus. Apart from what we said before, that he wishes that Hashem's kavod in the world to be revealed on a greater and greater level. Hinei vadai tzorech sheyistah tomid tzah mamash al hagolus va'al hachurban. Mitzad shezeh gorem miut kaviyachol lichvod yisborach v'yis'ave lageula lefi sheba sheyeh olui lichvod Hashem yisborach. So there's another kavanah here that he's talking about, another intention, another mindset that a person should have, as we said before, I mentioned this already, this sense of sadness, pain, a constant real, actual pain of the fact that the Jewish people are in Golus, are in exile, as I mentioned before, of the rampant anti-Semitism, that's Golus. The fact that so many Jews feel so estranged from Judaism, that's Golus, that's exile. And the Churban, as we said before, the fact that Yesharim, in the place of the Beis HaMikdash, sits an alien building, and all the glory of the Jewish people is thrown into the dirt. Because, and why? Why should I feel all that pain? Because, as we said before, this causes a diminution, so to speak, in the honor of Hashem. So to speak, because of course Hashem's kavod can never be dimmed in itself. But again, we're talking about perceptions. V'yis'ave legeula, a person should long for the redemption. Lefi sheba yeh ilui chavod l'Hashem yisborach. Not just because of the Jewish people of being in exile, not just because of anti-Semitism, because of the tsar of the Shekhinah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a mystical concept. When the Jewish people are in exile, Hashem is in exile with us. And of course, whatever human feelings that we may have, so to speak, if I can talk in these terms, the tsar of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the pain of Hashem. When the Jewish people are in exile, the divine presence is also in exile. And a person, a chassid, his kavanot to raise up the glory of Hashem in this world and to raise up the honor of the Jewish people in this world, because he understands by doing that he also elevates the kavod, the honor, the presence, the revelation of God in this world. And that's why he should long for the geula, for the redemption, because through that there will be this tremendous elevation of Hashem, elevation of Hashem's name in the world, not of Hashem himself, Chalila. And as we said before, etc. He should constantly pray, daven, al golosam shel Yisrael, for the redemption of the Jewish people, whether that's in physical captivity or that's in the spiritual captivity of materialism and false isms which have plagued so much of the history of the Jewish people. The Hashavas Kavod Shamayim Le'ilui, and the restoration of Hashem's glory to its proper elevated place. V'imi Adam, and if a person should say, who am I? Mi ani. Uma ani safun shes palel al Yerushalayim. How am I considered to be sufficiently important that I can take on this task? Haben bnei tfilasi yuchunsu hagluyos. Because of my prayer, the exiles will be gathered in. V'tzitzmach Yeshua, and the redemption will sprout. The answer to that is Hatshuvah B'tzido. Ka'isa she'shaninu, as we learned in Sanhedrin. Lefikach nivra adam yechidi. A person, why was a person created as an individual? Adam Arishon. Why did Hashem create one man? Why didn't Hashem create the whole of humanity at once? Kedei shekol echad yomar, that each individual should say, Bishvili nivra ha'olam. It was on my account that the world was created. And he has a beautiful idea here. Kloma, Sheva Shamayim donim es ha'odam. In heaven, they judge each individual as though he was the only man in the world, the only person in the world. V'im came. So, Nimsad comes out. Shel ba'olam shelo. In his world, Omnon yochel lahavi lebinyan beis hamikdash. If he's the only person in the world, then it is within his power to bring the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash and to increase the kavod of Shemayim, the honor of heaven. Va'ein ze nogela, and it doesn't matter if we look at the world in this way. Sheyesh anashim acherim hama'akfim ba'ad habinyan amamashi'es Beis HaMikdash. It doesn't matter then that there are other people around him who are, in point of fact, preventing from the building of the Beis HaMikdash and the ingathering of the exiles, because Adam Nivra Yechidi, he was created alone, and he's judged, so to speak, as though he was the only force in the world. And therefore, whoever you are, at whatever level you are, a person has to view himself as, yes, I, within my world, I was created in this world so that I should understand that I have a power. Ani katan, however small I am, however insignificant I may think I am, I have the ability to raise the kavod of Hashem, to bring about the end of the Golus, the end of the exile, to bring about the end of anti-Semitism and massacre and blood, and to raise Hashem's name in this world, that Hashem will be seen on that day, that He is one, and He's always been the God of the Jewish people. May we see that speedily in our days.